All right. I'm so excited today to be here with my friend, my colleague, Dr. Laura Casal. Dr. Casal, I'm so glad to have you here for Poetry Month.
Well, I am too. I'll tell you one thing. I could just sit here and watch that introduction you just gave. That was pretty slick. I liked it.
Thank you so much.
That was great.
Um, one thing that we have in common is that we're both English professors at Northern Virginia Community College, and we are both love our creative writing spaces.
Yeah.
I think that's where we've connected on so many levels. But one of the things I love about you is how authentic you are, not only with your students, and we also do projects with them, which is a main thing. We really try to connect real life to writing, and how important literature and poetry and all the creative things that we do in the classroom are. And so I'm so excited because I've always personally loved your work. You have edited and looked at some of my work. So just tell the audience a little bit about you.
Well, I've been teaching at Nova since 1986. So that I'm not saying anything else about my age. And I didn't start when I was 3 years old. And I taught creative writing for like 25 years.
Wow.
Until we hired a younger person who mentioned in the interview that she wanted it. And to my surprise, I said, "You can have it." And I thought, where'd that come from?
Right.
After teaching all those years, and you know this, Shalay,
yeah,
you got to get some headspace for your work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think creative writing took a lot because you give so much, because they're putting their heart on.
Yes. Yes.
So it was different than teaching other classes, and I think my writing suffered from it. So I was glad to hand it over.
Yeah.
So I published a book in 1999 and called Noble Madness, and I have 2 chapbooks that I've done since, and I'm working on a second book of poetry, but I really am working on trying to get this novel out of the way.
Yes, novels are tough.
It's tough because when I graduated from college, my plan was to be a writer and full-time and be a part-time. That got messed with.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, 33 years later, I'm thinking, what the heck? Time to kind of make some changes. So that's where I am right now. And I appreciate being here with you during Poetry Month. We just had a poetry reading right before this at Nova.
Yeah.
To see the projects, you mentioned the projects, those students presented. We have people crying on Zoom. I mean, and so I think it's really important what we do to bring poetry alive. I think it does make a difference in our lives. So thank you for what you do as well.
Oh, thank you so
and
much.
Your energy. I don't know where you get your energy from. I mean, you have so many. I'm thinking of doing like 1/3 of what you're doing. So I just want to give a shout out to.
Oh, thank you, Laura. You've always been so encouraging. I mean, I remember being
on your back.
I just love you so much. I remember being a new faculty member, and you bought me something that I still have in my office, a Langston Hughes picture of a bird, and to this day, it still touches me. I love it. You bought me so many things over the years, things you make and stuff.
Well,
and you're such a creative person. But I love the fact too. I'm gonna bring this up. I don't know if we didn't talk about this, but I know that you and your family, you have some artists, and you've done some like poetry mixes with that. I think that is so great.
Yeah.
That you're able to mix the mixed media.
Yeah.
The way you use mixed media.
Oh yeah. It turns me on. I don't think poetry has to be dead on the page.
Yes.
I think when we teach it dead on the page, the students put it in the same category as like, I don't know, some kind of ancient script.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the brain research on poetry, it shows that poetry is in the exact same place that music is. So who say they don't like music? So I think sometimes we as teachers, give them a Novocaine shot in the brain when it comes to I mean, we really do. And so my students word art. I have here to show you.
Yes, please.
A series of
I love that. I have one of those bottles.
And this is an Emerson quote that a student did. And so, I just think poetry is a live art. I don't think
Mhm.
dead on the page, and I think we as teachers have to bring it. But my brother Tom is an artist.
Yes,
In
I
fact,
love Tom.
he was at the he likes you too. He was at you were at Pat Gary's retirement party,
Yes,
and
yes,
he thought that you two were like kindred spirits there. But
yes, we really are.
he was at the poetry reading today, and what I have are really bad examples of it, but he did something like this, which is a painting of a friend of mine was walking in Spain with her two aunts.
Mm.
And she took that picture and gave it to me. I took it to Tom and said, "Would you paint this for me?" And he did. And when I saw it, I thought, I'm going to write a poem about it.
Yes, please.
I wrote
Can
a
you
poem.
read it? I want to hear it.
Yeah, this one is called Santisma Trinidad. And it reads, "They walk 3 generations, separating yellow waves by gait or will, moving towards green for shade. One in black because of loss, many and rapid, 1, 2, 3, and more, then grief like a dress just fit. The other a fulcrum, balancing the two, tilted slightly the weary neck. She blames her inner ear, escucha el océano. I hear the ocean in my ear. While the third, their mujercita, carries the affection of youth, tempting the morning sun. There are no men, they are gone, like guests, and missed as much, trapped in wood on the wall off the kitchen. They seep into stories, then are ghosts again, silent like wind until she hums her chant. They know time against the years, against the murmurings of 3 women under the Spanish sky." So that is
I
what
love it.
Tom and I have always done. And then this one, which is doing nothing from his art, he's going to watch this and hate me, but he
No, he's not.
peonies, and I walked in and I made some dumb comment about, "Man, you better hurry up and paint them because those babies don't last long."
Right,
I mean, I have them in my yard. They're so beautiful, like for a day, and then
yes.
they look like a retired burlesque dancer after a
Yeah,
day.
they don't last long, which is so disappointing. You got to catch them when they bloom.
What I love about poetry is we were in that same conversation because he and I bounce life around off the walls that would make most people dizzy. But we were talking about his godmother, our Aunt Selena, who is a matriarch of our family, who was declining kind of rapidly.
Yeah.
And I came home and I'm at my desk and I'm thinking of the peonies and I'm thinking of my Aunt Selena. And then I wrote another poem. And so that this one is called Peonies, and I seldom put 4, but I wanted people to know.
Yes.
It's for Aunt Selena. So I wrote, "The peonies bloomed before the rain came hard and constant days on days until they lost the war. Weakened, spread pinkness like tissue prom carnations the day after the dance. I cut a few, placed them in a vase from Florence, thinking maybe dignity would beget valor, hoping they would spring to life, but they're no daisy, knowing their struggle with legs too thin to hold the brag of them. Yet they return every year, full blossom, sashaying, making the garden blush, these queens of cabaret, until they catch wind or rain or cycle of days, then droop from the weight, leaving me to wonder, why not a thicker stem or a thinner bloom to last a week or two? Why the grand entrance, the sloppy end? Why can't splendor, once here, last?" And that's more about my Aunt Selena than
I
it is
love that.
than about the damn flowers. You know what I mean?
Yes, of course.
I think that's what poetry does. It takes something, feeling it helps you understand what you're thinking about. I mean, you know that.
Yeah, I love the way too that like you can look at something like nature and it can remind you of a person. It's just funny how it really brings personification to life. When I think about poetry and I remember one year. Remember that year? Well, every 7 years we have these cicadas that come.
Right, they're coming.
And I remember, and they're so annoying because they make so much noise and they're all over the place. It's like really creepy. And I remember one year there was like one cicada struggling after all of them had died, and just had me write a whole poem based off of it. So I understand that. That's what poetry does, you know?
Yeah, and that's what nature does, you know.
Yeah.
I think that when I think of my Aunt Selena, I used to work with her as a little girl because we had a laundry, my grandfather, and I would go in there and I pick out safety pins and she'd give me $1, you know.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, even then, Shirley, I was saving those dollars to buy myself something. And she would be there. And I remember as a little girl thinking this, she would have a white halter on and she had almond skin and short capris. And I knew the men coming in that laundry
yes.
were flirting with her, even at a young age. And
right.
I'm thinking, my Aunt Selena's freaking beautiful. I mean, she's beautiful. So to see her in the nursing home, this shriveled, you know, and you could still hear the attitude there, but the bloom is gone, you know.
Yes.
And I was trying to explain to my nephew what she was like when she was full blossom. I said, scare you. She scared most men. She carried it, you know? She carried a sensuality. She carried a you wish you could touch me kind of look.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, you know, when I was looking at those peonies and Tom and I were laughing, I said, you better paint them fast, honey. They're fading as we're looking. I thought sometimes it speaks for life. You know, you have those years when you're full blossom and then all of a sudden a wind comes.
And then before you know it, your time is up.
Whatever the wind is, it could be a broken relationship. It could be whatever it is.
That's so good.
It knocks your bloom right off the stem, you know?
Oh my God. Yes. I love that. I love the way you did that analogy. It's so true.
Yeah.
And I've learned too, that poetry is something, you know, I hope poetry never dies, because I will say that I notice the difference when I play like poems to my students. It doesn't, you know, when I'm put on those slam poetry, or I show them poetry by, you know, by the greats like June Jordan and people that just express their poetry, and Toni Moore, you know, people that really, you know, Alice Walker and Maya Angelou and Amadi Bakata, and I play the poetry for them. They're like, oh my God. I didn't know poetry could be alive like this.
Exactly. I always tell them, if you don't read it out loud, you haven't read it, you know, because I think, you know, we're so worried about course summaries and course objectives and, you know, can they punctuate a sentence that, you know, today in the poetry reading, students wrote about things that were so close to them. You know, one student wrote a poem about abuse, and, you know, and then she read it in English, and then she read it in Spanish.
Wow.
I mean, students were just, you know, one student wrote in the chat box, "You're not alone."
Wow.
I hear you. And I think we fail students as teachers when we make it a subject.
Yes.
You know, and not an art.
Yes.
And
you and me have connected with that, because we have always tried to make it an art. I mean, COVID has hurt me so bad, because, you know, we did poetry slams where we had community come out and perform. I take all my literature students before COVID to a play and make them connected, you know, and I want it to be alive to them, you know.
It is a living art. Today, after we're through, I have tickets for this Academy of American Poets, and I mean, Meryl Streep is reading, you know, the people that are on that stage reading poetry, you know, it's not just it's not just in this textbook. And I think that's what we have to show them. I mean, I know students who were able to do word art, and were able, one student, Chalet, I'm going to send you some of her poetry.
Yes, please.
So she is amazing. She wrote this poem. We ended it today with her, you know, I choose me. And every time she said, you know, when you offered me a drop of water and you had a bucket full, I still choose me.
Woo!
And I mean, students were clicking and going crazy.
I love it.
Oh, she said, when you have a house full of food and you throw a crumb out the window, I still choose me. And
I love it.
Yes. You know, and I thought to myself, what could do that besides, you know, I think of sports, a sports analogy, because I love football.
Yes.
That's my
Yes.
weakness. Okay. But when you are watching a game and this player who was too small, not good enough, came from a background that they didn't expect him to do anything, and suddenly an entire city is riding on his back when he's running down that field, I'm up in my chair going nuts.
Yes.
And the only other time I've seen that is at a poetry slam.
I love it.
Or a concert.
Yes.
Prince concert.
Yes, like a concert, a real concert, like the one, yes.
For the Prince conference, I did. When he started singing, my arms went up. I went down to my knees. The friends I was with thought I was crazy. But I thought, when you get to that level of connection, it is sacred.
Yes.
It is sacred. It is.
Yes, that's so true. I would love to hear. We want to hear some more of your poetry, please.
Okay. Well, this one, the students were teasing me about why I don't dye my hair. They were saying, "Oh, Professor C, you don't look as old as you are." I said, "Yeah, I do. They go, "No, you dyed your hair." This one girl said, "You dyed your hair, you wouldn't look that old." So I told them, I said, I've written a number of poems about my age, because I think once you get, when you turn 50, your first response is to say, "Don't mess with me."
Right.
Live too long, not going to put up with it. Okay.
Right.
But then when you start getting 55, 58, 60, you start saying, "Oh, hell, I'm getting old." You're worried here. So I wrote that one year. I flew out to Nevada. My younger brother, who I adore, was in Arizona, and he met me, and we were sitting under this beautiful big sky, and it was dark, and it was full of stars, and for some reason I felt someday I'm going to be up there. It was like, oh God. And, I said, okay, I'm feeling a little scared right now. He goes,
right,
like, right. Like, if I just take one less breath, I'm in heaven. That's what it feels like. So I wrote this poem called "Watching the Sunrise in Nevada." I wondered of age's approach. Would it be slow creeping up like fall's chill, or the inescapable swish of sun hot and unforgiving? Would it come in a dream or a nightmare when I see in the mirror the face unimaginable at 40? Will I be elegant in acceptance, or roar with alarming craving, a reprieve, hungry for one more naked summer of surrender? I do check my pride, align what wisdom I can gather to know. First, it will come in a poem, honoring the slow autumn pace, the walk through burning leaves, the cup of hot tea, the setting early, like the waning days, preparing for winter with alarming ease. So that is,
I love that.
That is, and then this one I wrote, as you know, Shalay, you've gone through it because we've shared it. This COVID has taken several members of my family.
Yes.
And the most surprising is my cousin Lisa, who was 60 years old, taking care of her 94-year-old mother, died.
Wow.
I wrote this poem about 4 days after trying to come to some peace.
Yes.
And it's called "What I Believe" for Lisa. I believe there was a leaf, an October leaf, falling orange and dirty yellow, drunken in its descent, unsure, uncontrollable, weaving down, landing where gravity decides. It wasn't a leaf. It was a butterfly, surprisingly faded, empty elegance, winded, wind nudge from branch to branch, while next door a bee held the pistol of a mum, arrogant, sure of the nectar. I watched, needing to see the butterfly find its place as time wanes. The afternoon sun, less yellow than white, has lost all its heat. Warm, cold is not far off. Your time, not even a year, so show your stained glass span. There is no easy way to say this. I need beauty to be beauty. This butterfly to kaleidoscope my day, because summer is almost over and I'm afraid of fall.
Wow.
And that was
That's so powerful.
because that, I mean, this year taught us that between some of the political stuff and
Oh my God.
the medical stuff, I mean, we were on a roller coaster where I'm moving to Spain like tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm staying in America. It's a new day, to then getting another piece of news, whether it was another shooting or another, I mean, and you just, I don't know, it's been a roller coaster.
Oh my God. I saw a fellow professor of ours who was on the show, Indigo. Hey Indigo, if you're watching, talk about the PTSD that her students face. But that made me think,
Yeah.
I suffered through PTSD during this time.
Yeah.
Like, I was traumatized,
Yeah.
even as a professor,
Yeah.
in between, hearing people from New York that, because I'm from New York City, all the people that I knew that died, or people that I knew that died from COVID. I'm talking about people like that went to high school with me. So we're talking about young people that died too soon.
Yeah.
Lives gotten taken away. So my uncle had it. Thank God he recovered. But just the anxiety mixed in with racial injustice, and just being still like at this place, like, does people think that this doesn't exist? Like, it was just an alternate universe to me,
Lately, I think now that we're back, several students have written about this with their argumentative paper.
Yes.
That we're opening up society a little bit. Then you have the shootings.
Yes.
Where you think, what, like, everyone stayed home, so there were no mass shootings, and now everyone's, out. And, so I think sometimes what poetry does for me is I could put my fear and I could put my anger on the page, and it maybe takes away enough of it.
Yes.
It helps you through the day.
It does. It really does.
People who play music do that.
Yeah.
They pick up the guitar, they play the piano, they do something that brings them back to some semblance of humanness and beauty.
Yes.
And with my students, in my poetry class, it was so strange. They got together and said, "Hey, Dr. C, we were talking in the breakout rooms. We have a request." And I said, "Okay." They said, "We want you to read us a poem at the end of every class."
I love it.
Okay. And they said, "You could read any poem you want to read." Someone else's. And as I was reading the poems and looking at those faces, I felt, I know this sounds weird, but I felt like this universal mother who was them,
who was healing them, right?
Yeah, it really was. And I made sure I picked poems. This isn't a poem of mine, but if I can find it here,
please, yes,
read it to you. Because I think it was one of the poems I read to them and got a lot of, but it's by Alice Walker.
Oh, please. I love Alice Walker.
And it's called Desire. My desire is always the same, wherever life deposits me. I want to stick my toe and soon my whole body into the water. I want to shake out a fat broom and sweep dried leaves, bruised blossoms, dead insects, and dust. I want to grow something. It seems impossible that desire can sometimes transform into devotion, but it happens. And that is how I survived. The whole I carefully tended in the garden of my heart grew a heart to fill it.
Oh, I love that.
And when you read them that poetry, and then one student said, "Read us something angry." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'm going to read you something angry." I said, "Here's a poem I wrote after being at a family reunion."
Yes.
Hearing some junk float around.
They will make you angry.
So I wrote, "What I wish you knew. When am I paid in full? When can I stop being grateful for being born? Who do I thank? God, evolution, my grandmother's prayer, some cosmic lottery? Who had the idea it was my turn? Where was I before? Heaven? One particle among many? Dust made flesh? Was it all chance? Was it me you wanted? Did you know me at first breath? Or was I just one of many? Did I come with instructions? Whose instructions? These answers matter. I will not pay to leave the house I did not choose. I remain myself now. I reclaim myself now, like a sparrow leaving the nest, where I can hunt on my own. And
Yes.
and I had been gathering my food, finding my shelter, going out in half moon to roam as I please with my sounds, not yours.
Yes.
The sparrow does not stay or return to the cycle of life, their journey beyond. They are the compass with wingspan of their own. Only the earth is round and open to me like sunrise, sunset, like ocean, breeze, like rain. There are no prices due, no bills to pay you.
Mm.
I would have been born by you or other or design. My energy, dear, was destined to be. My circuitry set in place by nature divine. So lower your hand, shelve the lesson on should. I know the way life screams. It is never backwards. And I read that.
Ooh, I love that.
Oh, yeah,
Woo!
yeah, yeah. And I just said them. You reach a time when you're hearing all these people saying what you should have did and what you
Yes.
hey, enough.
That's right. I love it.
Yeah, who gives you permission to tell me that? Well,
Right.
you're mine. No, baby. I wasn't yours. I would have been here with you or without you.
That's
And
right.
students were like, Dr. C, I can't believe you felt that way. I said, yeah. And I came home. I wrote that poem. Some of my poems take a week. I wrote that
Yes.
poem in 10 minutes.
Because
It
you was
was like,
feeling that. You
that baby jumped right out of
those
me.
family reunions will do it to you, boy. Okay.
I'm telling you, I'm listening to all these people, these old people saying things that their kids should have done, and I thought my son could have been a big football player. Meanwhile, you're sitting there, 350 pounds. You couldn't hold the ball if you wanted to, And there's the kid feeling less than.
Yes. Yes.
For him was to be a football player, or your dream for your daughter was to marry a dentist and live in the suburbs and have them over for Sunday dinner.
Right.
Sitting here taking all this in, I thought, oh, this is dangerous because you got a poet among you.
Yes.
And she's revving up.
Yes.
So it's interesting for them to know how you do things, how you see things, your process. They know, and your students know this about you.
Yes.
We're not just teachers
Mm-mm.
finding ways to pass or flunk them.
Right.
We're people that have passions, that are in love with our subject, whether they're in the classroom or not. And that's what I told them after that poem.
Yes.
They're sitting there all feeling good that I said this about my family, but I'm saying about you too.
Right.
You don't determine how I love poetry.
Right.
I'll read Alice Walker's poem if you leave the class. I don't care. And
Right.
they're laughing. But I think, that's important for us. I think our voice has to be one of the loud voices in society.
Yes, one thing I love about you too is your story. I know that you don't tell many people your story because it's so interesting.
Yeah.
But I want you just to tell a snippet of it because I've been trying to get you to write this book about this story for the longest.
Which of the many stories should I?
I mean, I love the fact, there's so many aspects of you that I love. The fact that you're, Italian, from Italian heritage, and how you were like the first to graduate in your family, and how your father screamed. I wrote a poem about it actually. You telling me, yeah, I'll read that in the end of this thing. But because when you told me that story, I never forgot it. And how your father screamed because he was so proud of you, but you were the bold one. You were the one who spoke out.
Yeah.
And your family, which probably was very different for your father.
Oh yeah. My father was a conservative Roman Catholic, old-fashioned Italian man, and he had me. I was like, holy cow, how that?
But and he had your brother, who is, I'm sure, did not.
Oh my God! I mean, these two kids that are off the chart, and a younger son who's living, as if he's living on the moon in Arizona. My brother's a naturalist, and doesn't follow any rules.
Right.
And my father was a very rule-bound, hardworking, blue-collar man. And I told you at my first poetry reading, I had written a poem about him, and I thought I can't read it because that's something we artists go through,
Right. Yes.
There's some of my stuff that several people have to be dead before I bring it out.
Right.
It's just disaster. I'm not quite as brave as, maybe it's being the oldest in the family, that I'm not quite as brave. I don't want to hurt anybody with
No,
my,
I understand that. Yes.
but it's honest work. I mean,
Right.
but I wrote a poem about him being kind of a, a disciplinarian, authoritative father at first, raising two artist children. It was just not the best blend.
Yes.
And so I thought, okay, that's a poem I'm not going to read. I put that aside. Not gonna read that one. And he's sitting right in the front row, and he looked at me and said, "Read it."
Love it.
And I knew what he was talking about because he had seen my book of poetry.
Yeah.
And he was so damn proud of that poem. I mean, he
Do you
just,
still have the poem, Laura? Can you read it?
I have it. It's somewhere in here.
We would love to hear, because that's too that story that stays out to me, because I feel like God has a sense of humor.
Oh yeah.
That he would create a man that's so strict by his rules, so military, so conservative, and he would have these children that are open-minded and are artsy and like, look, Dad, you know what I'm saying? And
I mean, it was just, it was so amazing, and I think the fact that he wanted me to read it was it was amazing to me, because I didn't feel completely comfortable
yes,
doing it, and even after I read it, I looked over to him to see if
it was okay.
if he still meant it, but it's just it was hard growing up, I think, sometimes in a family where you know um I was an introvert, you know
Yeah.
and I think that was also something that was, I grew up in a family of extroverts, blue collar workers that just really, as long as you were working hard, that's all that mattered.
Mm.
And I thought, I don't want, I don't want to do that.
Right.
I mean,
We don't want to survive. We want to live.
I found it. It's called Trapping the Lion.
Mm.
Trapping the Lion. And my dad had congestive heart failure for most of his later years.
Yeah.
So, Trapping the Lion. They tell me you are lucky. The heart damaged but not defeated. Another life like a cat. You have used up 5, 4 to go, they say, proudly looking your way. Encouraging smiles from the room, full of relief, because there are so many who have so much to do. You see, death is an inconvenience, and life resists the lower frequency of illness. So you sit, your eyes too terror wise for my comfort, your body suddenly small in a chair, your hands touch each other, tentative, as if you were surveying landscape for the familiar, the path back to the days of the lion roaring, tearing through the walls of the house as if they were paper, tissue paper thin, days where your absence was a ceasefire from tempers never extinguishable or explained. The psychologies and years have failed those who wanted to love you easy in some safe place, old man. Your own heart has taken the fire away, leaving you in a corner, listening to your life quiet in slow motion, the jungle replaced with light gardening on cool days. There is no fear of you left in me, no anger, just a strange observing of what may have been a once beautiful beast.
Ooh.
And so I read that night, and he loved it. And then later I found out he loved opera and loved art.
So he was into it. He just couldn't express it because it wasn't the manly thing to do back then.
No. And he had to start working while he was in grade school because he came from a divorced family and he was the oldest. And he never felt smart enough to go to college. And so he worked in a steel mill. It killed him, And so all of a sudden, too late afterwards, you find out that probably a lot of what my brother and I have in us as far as art and music and opera came from my dad.
Wow, so
You know?
interesting.
And that's why at graduation too. I mean, we're sitting at GW on graduation day.
Yes.
All the parents are, from New Jersey and New York, and they're rich. And here comes my dad with this, maroon bad suit on, and I said, "Oh, that tie, Tom, why didn't you get?" And when they called my name, I mean, he stood up. That's my daughter, and I thought, "Oh my God, Jesus help me!" But he loved the fact that I graduated. In fact, when he was very sick, I went home one Thanksgiving. You'll know this, Chalet. And I was right in the middle of my program at GMU, and I thought, I'm quitting.
Yes, I know.
I'm the oldest child. I've never quit. You know what? I'm going to quit. I'm going to walk into my advisor's office and say, take this dissertation and put it anywhere.
Oh, I know how that feels.
Anywhere you want, okay? And I was saying this at Thanksgiving. He could hardly talk. He was having a hard time breathing. And he looked up and he said to me, he said, do it. Do it for all of us.
Wow.
And my nephew, Philip, who teaches with us.
Oh my God, that brought tears to my eyes. But I know.
He looked at me and he said, Aunt Laura, don't quit when you're losing. Quit when you're winning. And so I thought, oh, damn. So, but he said, I can't wait till that day. And he died about 3 months before I walked.
Wow. But he was proud. I know he was proud.
Yeah. And that was our background can become the energy that pushes us forward. And his mother, who most of my poetry stems from, loved beautiful things, loved lilacs and nice sheets and good perfume.
Yeah.
She was poor. People would say, Mary, who do you think you are? She said, I know who I am.
Right.
So from that, I think I got, that sense that, take the ball and take it further than they took it, because they could have, they would have.
Yes.
So, so it's, I mean, that too. I mean, and you have children too that are watching you.
Yes.
You drop that ball and they see you. They go, okay, Mom, we can all drop.
I know. I felt like I was the only child. So it's a little different. And my mother, had higher education. My father went to get his PhD late. He was the one who told me, get your PhD when you're young, because it's harder when you get older.
Yeah, exactly.
But they've always had this expectation. I'm so much like my father in a lot of ways, and my mother. My father is like, and he loves learning, and he loves that sense of learning and just research. And he's always delving into knowledge, and spreading it with me. And so we love that knowledge thing. We got that. But my mother, she's a lover of beautiful things. She's a lover of love and giving and love. And so I see a lot of my mother in me too, because
have that combo.
Yes, it's so crazy.
It's a great combo. I mean,
it is a great combo. They're like on the opposite sides of the fence. My father's no nonsense. Like, if it don't work, we leaving. My mother's like, I'm staying until it dies. You know what I'm saying?
Isn't that something? But with your kids, I mean, do you feel the pressure sometimes that you can't be weak? You can't let go?
Yeah, I do. But I also feel like, to me, my priority is a little different. I want their happiness. I want them to be actually happy people and good people. So if that means you're a struggling poor artist, you know what I'm saying? But it makes you happy.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And I think, when we talk about Philip, he was in film school at Temple University.
Yes.
So for 4 years, we're hearing, he's majoring in film. Then one day he comes home, it's Christmas time, and he's sitting around the table, goes, oh, guys, real casual, you know him. I just know what I'm doing with my life. Okay, let's hear it. He said, I'm going to go to graduate school for English, and I want to teach literature. Oh, Chalet, I nearly fell off the table.
Well, we love Phil. We love Phil. He has, Phil has come into my class when I was teaching, and he's always my pop culture class. He's always taught my film section.
Yeah,
and he's wonderful.
He loves it.
I mean, he's great with students. He's good looking on the eyes too.
Yeah.
He looks like he's an Adonis sculpture or something.
Well, it's funny because students will say, who did you have for 111? And this one girl got real red. And I had Professor Chernello. And I looked at her, I said, why are you so red? She said, he's really hot. And I died. I said, hey, you're talking about my baby there.
I know, and they don't even know, right?
You know what that meant to me though is, not that, oh, be like me because I'm so great, but it meant, later, I realized that he used to come out to campus with me and he used to sit in the classroom, he and his brother, when I was teaching. And I think he saw happiness.
Yes.
I mean, because most of our family were blue collar workers who couldn't wait to retire because their bodies were broken down. And suddenly he has this example of someone who goes and talks about things that he knows she loves. And I think that really influenced him.
I love that. I love that because I often tell my students, a lot of our students are pressured by family still to this day on what to major in, what career to be in.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I tell them the story about how I started out in corporate America. I was making buku money. I could have been the CEO making probably $1 million by now. I was 21. Yeah. Okay, my bonuses was probably as big as my paycheck, and you know what I mean.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, and I could have climbed the ladder, but I was so unhappy. I did not like working for lawyers as a copywriter or a writer. Even everything was overlooked. There was no creativity. And so when I began teaching, I didn't mind taking a pay cut. It was a passion for me.
I know.
And so I always tell students, if you do what you love, somehow God works it out for you where everything falls together. You know what I'm saying?
Look what you're doing with all of these venues to get yourself out there and your work out there.
Yeah.
And at night you could fall asleep. It's interesting you say that because I had a student in my creative writing class who was one of the most gifted students I've ever had. And he came to me, I kept saying to him, what's your major? What's your major?
Yeah.
So one day he goes, okay, I'm going to tell you my major. I said, finally, what's your major? What's the big thing? He said, I'm majoring in business. And I said, and I had him for like 3 semesters.
Right. So you get to know your students. Yes.
I said, I don't see why. What do you love about business? And he goes, nothing. And I said, why are you majoring that? He said, my family owns a bunch of restaurants all around the area. Oh. I'm the only boy.
Oh, Jesus.
And my father is grooming me to take over them. And I said, is that something you think you might enjoy? And he said, I think it's going to kill me. And he was so beautiful. He was from Egypt. And he had a color eye that I yet seen since.
Right.
When he walked in the class, the girls all went, okay. Right. What this course is like.
Right.
And then when he read his poetry, it had that, that roomy, Middle Eastern rhythmic to it that was almost, you can almost hear the guitar or the harp in the background.
Wow, I love it. I love it.
So the last day of class, we were having conferences, and I said to him, poetry has you. You're not going to be able to get away from her.
Yes.
And he says, I know. And he walked out of class, and I was doing something in the classroom, and when I walked out after him, and our parking lot is in the back.
Right. Yes.
The lights were dim, and it was like, at that time, it was like 11:15 at night. And I saw him walking with his head down to his car. And this is a poem I wrote that night for him.
Yes, please.
It's to my student on the last night of class. I walk behind you, the dark campus, tranced by your gait, hands in pocket. You take to the night, broad-shouldered, slow, looking up and down a mind's dialogue. I imagine that same poise will serve you well at 50. When the day is of your own making, the night sounds your lullaby as a lover or child or wife waits safely inside the house that you have built with your brilliant poet's mind, trapped behind the desk designed by your father's values, your sloping shoulders held down by too far a journey that burns through generations in your dark, beautiful eyes. I want to take your face into my hands, tell you how beautiful you are when poetry has you. Everyone sat this evening in class, enthralled by your passion, your connection to beauty. But class is over, and there is no bridge for me to reach you on this evening that ends with me watching you walk away.
Ooh, that's so powerful.
And I mean, years later, he writes to me every now and then, and I say to him, "Any poetry for me to read?" And he says, "Not yet, maybe someday." He always says the same answer, and he's so polite and generous, you know.
Yes.
But he's running his father's restaurants.
You know, that breaks my heart, you know.
He wrote like I his love poetry. He could have had any girl or guy in that class on certain.
Right,
Really,
right,
he just thought, just take me home.
right.
And I told him, I said, you know how hard it is to write good love poetry? And
Yes,
do it so beautifully.
yes,
But, you know, it's just our society, especially, I think, to be honest with you, this society,
it is.
it doesn't value art.
Not only that, I see a lot of children of immigrant parents that
Yeah.
come here and they put so much pressure
Oh, yeah.
on them to like be like doctors and lawyers and run family businesses. And the kids are miserable.
Yeah.
They really are. And they are
Yep.
stuck and they don't want to do it. So I know that story so well, you know, with other
We
students.
teach Amy Tan's. I'm sure you have taught Amy.
Yes, of course. Two kinds, right?
Literally,
Yeah.
I've taught that so many times that
Me
every
too.
time I think of taking off the syllabus, I don't,
Me too.
because at least a third of the class relates.
Me too.
Because their parents gave up their homeland, their native tongue, their comfort level,
Yes.
okay, and they come to this country and try to make it, and you're the second generation. You better take care
Better
of
fall in line.
it. You better fall in line. You better become successful. And you know, it is a struggle being an artist.
Such
There,
a struggle.
you
I
know.
want to read one of my poems and then
Oh,
I'm going to have you close out with one of yours.
oh, fantastic!
Yes, I'm going to read, you helped me to edit this book Relive. I'm sure you remember it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was so grateful to you. I want to write this is called Ode to Colorful Women. I don't think you actually heard this poem because
no,
I put this poem in after, but
yeah,
I put you
yeah.
in this poem. So this is going to
But
probably
you
be the
still
first.
have to sign that for me too.
I will, no problem,
Okay,
anytime.
good.
There are so many women sharing their lives with me and others, making me stronger. I am ashamed of the moments in my youth when I thought only men were needed. I
Mm,
am reminded of a powerful woman who took me hanging from a limb on the other side of the tracks, running into brick walls with eyes open, taught me how to breathe. Black women becoming second and third mothers made sure I didn't fall into the dark hole, crippled, always able to reach the light. But I cannot deny the others.
mm,
Alice, my Jewish boss, gave me opportunity in corporate America. Later, when I had learned more, grown, moved on, invited me to her son's bar mitzvah.
mm.
Naja, my Middle Eastern neighbor, picked mint leaves out of her garden for my tea, made me the most delicious coffee in her home, where we discussed her love and sacrifice for her family, her love for Allah. I tried to remind her that she had all she needed for her own garden. In Texas, Lisette, Native American and Mexican heritage,
Mm.
taught me about her revolutionary origins. Could have talked about me when my esteemed breast hung low. Took me bra shopping instead. Reminded me of my worth. She actually did that.
Oh my God.
Later, reminded me of her warrior beginnings when she fought cancer and won.
Mm.
Lisa, Black and Pakistani soul sister, since 15, became her own woman, so young, too early, missing high school prom, life already beginning, surviving anything thrown her way, proud of her sexuality, culture, struggle. Laura,
Mm.
Italian woman who loves literature, says it's sexy, not afraid to live, identified by her father at an early age as strong and outspoken, lived up to her character and made him proud enough to cheer her on when she graduated from college. Now she's cheering me on in the moments that mattered the most, spreading joy to others regardless of demographics or reason. Shaya, the Indian encourager, giving gifts her love, time, and energy for nothing at all, to the detriment of herself, but refusing to get up. Then there was a time I was escaping, unable to move, going nowhere, but everywhere fast. Traveled to another country, went to the garden of God to purge the photographer Rachel, both of us in foreign lands, me black, her white, prayed for me near the bridge, reminding me I wasn't forgotten by him. The more I meet, the more I know it doesn't matter the check boxes or class or age. We all share stories, moments, disappointments, hurts, joy. We all give up and come back to life in color.
Oh God, that is beautiful. You're doing Shalea's version of Whitman, Ginsburg, Maya Angelou. You got all the biggies whispering in your ear on that one, girlfriend.
Yes, yes.
Well, I'm going to end with the poem that I hope leaves us with a little joy. It's a poem that I wrote right in the middle of this horrible year. It's called After Breaking. This day should have chill and does, yet blue reigns in sky and bird as I sit in the yard barren, drained from a season where everything divided and burned like sun rays, fire swords against the earth. Unprotected are we in such times. To fold would ease, silence a turtle's back. Yet life has its way, wrestling free like a child constrained to play again, to believe daffodils are right below, waiting to surprise their yellow, their green eye, the first decoration of lonely ground, tired of gray, of hardness, wanting to feel bare feet, digging into spring, wanting to join revival, and we must.
Ooh, love that. Wanting to join revival, and we must. Yes.
This has been wonderful.
Yes. I love this moment. I'm so glad you joined me today.
I was excited about it all month.
Yes. Yes.
Doing what you're doing, you're just it takes so much energy, and you do it so effortlessly because it's you.
Yes, it is me.
You have found your place. You have found your place. And the only other thing you have to do is move to Arlington.
Yes. Yes.
Leave the country. Come on.
I always tell Laura, I don't belong here, Laura. I'm coming north.
You don't need a big yard.
I don't. I really don't. I don't even want to cut the grass anymore anyway. How about that? Okay.
Yeah.
Forget about that. Listen, I have one off to college, one more that's about to go off to college, and I'm out. I'm just worried about my baby, and that's it. This has been such a great moment. I'm so excited.
It's wonderful to be able to talk to you about life and poetry. It doesn't get better.
Yes. And one thing I always say this, it's always so nice coming in the campus and seeing your face. We always share some great stories about our students, but our love for creative writing and life itself is refreshing. When you meet somebody else who loves life the way you love life, you know what I'm saying? Even when things are not going great.
No.
It's just such a joy to feel
you're like that too. I think when we talk about that turtle's back, if you let someone take your joy away, eventually that's on you.
So good. So true.
That's on you. And so we both have things in our life that keep us afloat. And that's what you hold on to when someone's trying to drown you.
And we have that grit. You got that Ohio grit, and I got that New York grit. So they can't break us.
Grit. I mean, really. I mean, yeah.
We're unbreakable. And that Italian with it, forget about it.
Loretta says we got that behind Walmart's at 3:00 in the morning grit.
Yes.
She says you're that kind of friend I can call up at 3:00 in the morning and say, meet me behind Walmart's and ask a question. And that's the grit we have.
Yes.
We can handle it.
And that, my friend, is becoming rare.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And I really do. Well, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. Stay tuned for poetry. We got one more speaker.
Okay, I will.
All right.
Now, how do we get this, Shaleia?